everybody. As real estate professionals, we have all come to realize that insurance companies are making getting to closing much more difficult than it used to be. Let's talk about that for just a minute. It's no secret, and at least according to this article, that Citizens is being sued into oblivion. A lot of that is coming from the assignments of benefits contractors, and bottom line is it's costing a lot of money, and they're trying to cover their assets, so to speak. It has been said that about 8% of all claims come from the state of Florida. However, 79% of the lawsuits are coming from Florida. If that gives you any clue on what the big picture looks like. So Citizens is ramping up, and I mean ramping up big time, their inspections. They have started a massive new inspection program where they are taking normal 5,200 inspections a year to 350,000 inspections by the year 2025. Now, this is massive. And you're probably sitting there shaking your head right now. Yeah, you realize it's happened to you too. And I understand. So let's talk about what's happening here a little bit. Not too long ago, Citizens started requiring anybody with a roof more than 10 years old to get a new roof, which is absolutely ridiculous. So the government has stepped in, local government, and they have now, under State Bill 2D, prohibited insurance companies from denying coverage based solely on the age if it's less than 15 years old, okay? Or if it's determined then that if that roof has at least 5 years of remaining life. That was obviously a big help in a lot of different respects. So it made getting insurance a little bit easier. However, a lot of other things are changing. These are some of the things that you must be considering when you're buying houses, because even Progressive is in the process of reviewing all of their non-renewing policies where the roofs are more than 15 years old. Wow, go figure. So it's not just Citizens, it's a lot of other insurance companies as well. They do give you an out if it's more than 15 because of that 2D law, but it's not that it's making our lives any easier. So for roofs that do qualify, coverage will be extended for a period of up to 5 years, even if the remaining useful life shown on the inspection is greater than 5 years. Okay, so Citizens might conduct inspections at any time to verify that the roof continues to satisfy underwriting requirements. And what I have heard is that they may give you coverage and then wait a year. So say your roof has 5 years left, they may wait a year and then go back and do another inspection, and now you have less than 5, and you're screwed. So this is kind of one of the games that they're playing. If you don't have insurance, of course, you'll get an in-force placed policy. If you are getting now an in-force placed policy for 4-point reports, those are only good for 10 days. They're really, really quick. So you may be hustling and juggling some things to make the deals happen, but if you're getting force placed coverage, it can obviously be expensive, right? To make things I don't want to use the word worse, but to mix things up a little bit, some of the inspections that the insurance companies are doing, and this is countrywide, okay, they have come up with a product from Cape Analytics called a roof condition rating, whereby they are able to do their own inspections from the office, okay? They have realized that about half of their claims are coming from wind and hail. Now, not considering hail, because that's, that happens, but when a shingle is brittle, it will break easier than if it's newer and supple and bends. Okay, so when the wind blows and they break, that's when the insurance company starts to get exposed. So just based on the roof age alone, they know which roofs perform better, and hence this whole 15-year thing that has come up, been made even more aware than it has been in the past. So if older roofs perform worse than new roofs, they are attempting to cull out some of these old roofs, and I understand it makes sense. but they're using this roof condition rating, whereby they are using something like a Google Earth to do their own inspections, like literally from doing satellite inspections. And this is available across the country. Any carrier can use it. And they are using that now as a standard input for risk management. Okay. Now this gets worse. As a standard input. So if they look at your roof and they see something that doesn't look right, it can be almost impossible to get insurance, or your rates may go up. And I'll show you some examples. All right. So these are coming up when they're initiating new policies or they're coming up for renewals. So this is virtually going to affect everybody. So with the ability to understand the condition of the roof, insurers now can specifically select and prioritize their best risks. In other words, they take only the newer roofs. So they avoid the older ones to help, so they don't have to pay out in future claims. But this is where it gets really interesting. If you have a dirty roof or the view of your roof is obstructed, it is actually becoming an issue now whereby they can raise your rates and or cancel. No kidding. Don't believe me, that's fine. Take a look around online. Here's one from a colleague who posted, now insurance companies are expecting roofs via the satellite that we just talked about. And he had a customer that's being canceled because their satellite image shows an obscured roof. It's a tile roof. So tile roofs, and this is a newer roof, so to speak. You know, in other words, it's not an 80s or 90s vintage roof. So it's probably using a synthetic underlayment, which will last a long time. But even if you had an old felt roof, you're still going to get, 30 years plus maybe out of these roofs. The older felt roof, the felt would become brittle and fail, and then any moisture that got past the tiles is, it turns into a roof leak. But this is a roof that's only 15 years old, a tile roof that's 15 years old. So regardless of what kind of underlayment it has, it should have plenty of life left. Okay, you can get 50 or more years out of a tile roof, especially if you got a good synthetic underlayment. So you look at this image, and because it's got tree limb coverage, there they go. They can't get insurance. They've been canceled, right? It seems a little bit ridiculous, but this is what's happening. If you know about the stuff and can talk about these things with your client as you're going through the deal, it's a lot easier to manage than getting blindsided at the 11th hour, right? Here's one from Farm Bureau. You're going to love this. Farm Bureau is only doing home insurance if the house is 6 years or less, 6 years old or less. Like, really? Well, if I were the insurance company, I'd take those numbers all day long, right? I also heard that a similar response from Frontline Insurance, and I'm sure it's several other companies. But one thing, let me throw out there that as you're working with your clients, don't ever let your client provide the insurer the full home inspection report. Okay, the home inspection report by state standards must list some things, okay? And some of those things might not be the best, but they're not deal breakers, but they might be seen like that by an underwriter. So never do that. There's no need to dig the hole any deeper, okay? Only provide the insurer what they're asking for. Let me show you some examples. Dennis Neal had an insurance company requiring that the water heater be strapped because according to the underwriter, it's US law that all water heaters have earthquake straps. Mind you, we live in Florida. We don't have hurricanes, and it is not mandatory in the Florida building code residential to earthquake strap. Now, a hurricane strap makes sense, but there is no code requirement to strap your water heater for earthquakes in Florida. But this is what you're going to have to deal with. Okay. My buddy Andrew Braun, he had a client that was having some trouble because here they got a roof that was less than 12 years old, had a little bit of mildew on there, which is very, very common. Okay, if you've got trees nearby or you live in any type of area where you've got air pollution, things like that, your roof can become discolored, and you could have mildew growth and those kind of things on there. So regardless of whether it leaks or not, regardless of its age, they're looking at it with a satellite and going, hey, it's a little dirty. We're not going to cover it. Holy cow. Wait, there's more. From Mike, I won't even attempt to butcher that one because I will butcher it. Based on this is a quote, based on the 4-point inspection, they're requiring that additional photos showing that the gutters have been cleaned out because they consider that a hazard. That's right. You're shaking your head right now going, seriously? Look, sometimes it's not always the home inspector's fault, okay? This is where a lot of this stuff is coming from. So clean your gutters, everybody. Good friend of mine, Alan Lucas, the insurance company is not going to, or they're requiring them to fix some things that weren't in the four-point report. They obviously got a hold of the full inspection report, and they saw warped vinyl siding and peeling paint on a wood gable, and they're requiring that to be fixed. Wow. Just to get insurance. But wait, there's more. Brad Meeks, insurance company, dropped his client because he installed solar. Whoa. Did I hit a nerve? Do you have solar on your house? Check this out. Selling power back to the utility company was considered a business. Wow. This is one of my personal ones. The insurance company was going to drop our client. He calls and says, they're going to drop me on this date unless you come back and inspect the low voltage lighting for the pool because it's never been updated. Like, it never has to be. There's nothing to update, right? So I had to go take a look at that. Check this one out. Somebody had posted, can you take a look at this 4-point? They had unacceptable plumbing lines that were more than 10 years old and didn't have braided risers. You know what I'm talking about? The braid, the steel braid. You've seen them in the big box stores. The risers, what's coming up from the valve up to the fixture, didn't have steel braided risers. Like, wow. Okay. So these things come up, and let me show you what a typical 4-point is going to cover. Now, this particular form is what's often referred to as the citizen's form. Okay. And back in the day, 4 points were really easy. It was your 4 major items: roofing, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. How old were they? Have there been any updates? It was pretty simple. And now they've gotten quite complicated. They're actually similar to a full home inspection, which is another reason why we're having so much trouble getting coverage. Okay. So I just want you to understand this so you get it, that it's not always the home inspector's fault. All right. So on the electrical page, right, one of the 4 points, hazards present, and they give you a list of stuff: blowing fuses, tripping breakers, empty sockets, etc. Okay, those things are understood. If you got something like this, they should be corrected. Double taps, okay, exposed wiring, unsafe wiring, those kind of things, got it. Okay, but look at this. Hazards, other. Well, what does that mean? So it's basically, the way I see this, any other electrical hazard you can come up with. And that could be a lot of different things. It could be very minor, $10 fixes. It could be obviously a lot more. But again, this is where some of these things come from. So let's take a look at the HVAC page. Okay, they want to know if it's central, and if it's not, what kind of space heater are they using, that type of thing. I can totally understand that. What I don't get is, what is the definition of good working order? In my opinion, that is pretty darn ambiguous, right? What's your definition of good working order? It's going to be different than her definition of good working order or his definition of good working order. In other words, this might reward the dumbest guy in the room, if you will. Somebody that doesn't know what a hazard looks like, or how a system should be functioning. They don't know, they pass. Well, they're rewarded for somebody that might understand what a hazard does look like. But good working order is just way too ambiguous. And here's a good one. Date of last service. Like often it's not been serviced because it didn't necessarily have to be. Okay. Sometimes the servicing company doesn't leave a sticker that gives a date. So now all home inspectors can do is mark on there unknown. Now, is this going to come back and bite somebody in the rear end later on? It sure could. So how about this? We are, okay, wood burning stove, space heaters, I get those things, but does the air handler or condensate line or the drain pan show any signs of blockage or leakage, including water damage to the surrounding area? Now, water damage, what's the definition of damage? Is a stain damage? Is delamination of plywood damage? It certainly is a sign of a leak. All of those would be, right? So even if it leaked a little bit and has a stain, I mean, my own air handler, sure, it's gotten clogged before and we've got stains. So it doesn't matter, right? If there's stains, then the inspector's got to mark it. There is a sign of leakage. This is where it starts to look a whole lot more like a home inspection, right? I mean, now we are supposed to do all of the dishwasher, all of the appliances. Okay. What is satisfactory? Again, ambiguous. So if it looks good, but it doesn't work, is that satisfactory? Probably not, because that would be a claim, right? Especially if you've got a big sub-zero fridge, it's expensive. So I think we can assume functioning as intended to be a decent definition of satisfactory. Wouldn't you agree? So what if then only one element of the water heater works, but the other one doesn't? Is that satisfactory? It's not functioning as intended. What if an inspector turned on the main water valve, hadn't been touched in 20 years, right? To see if it's satisfactory, and now it leaks. Well, now is it still satisfactory? Even though it functioned? And now who's going to fix it? Right? They also want us to take a bunch of pictures. Okay, each side of the dwelling, slopes of the roofs. I can get all that, no problem. But every water heater under every cabinet. So what does that mean? If they see something in the picture, a stain or something like that, is that going to prevent somebody from getting insurance? I don't know. Leaves in the gutters have proven to be a point of contention. Shocking stuff, right? How about this? Any visible signs of damage or deterioration? Talking about the roof. I can get all, I understand a lot of these things, cupping, curling, exposed, felt, those type of things. But check out the bottom. Any visible signs of leaks? Yes or no? What is a visible sign of leak? Well, we're going specific and saying the underside of the decking. So when you're in the attic and you're looking at the roof sheathing, are there signs of leaks? If it leaked before, especially say it was 2004, right? Charlie, Jean, Faye, one of those hurricanes, and everybody had water intrusion, right? We had windblown water all over the place. Many attic spaces have water stains. Well, it's asking specifically on this form, are there signs of leaks? Sometimes that leak may be active, it may not be. You know, if you lived in Florida for any amount of time, we could go weeks and sometimes months without any rain. So you could have an active leak. Right now it's a stain, but nobody can prove anything. So if there's a stain on the interior ceilings or the underside of the decking, well, we've got to mark yes, and that could be a point of contention. So here are this is providing full details and descriptions of anything that we find. Okay, whatever updates we find, any visible hazards or deficiencies. So now, do I have to consider any and all, because it does say any visible hazards or deficiencies? Any system determined not to be in good working order. Here we go again. What is the definition of good working order? I can get hot water out of the water heater, but if only half of it's working, is that considered good working order? I don't know. You know what? I even had a guy tell me one time that if I see pit bulls at the house, he wants that on the form. No kidding. I was told that directly. There is another form, a roof inspection form that Citizens has been using and requires. It's basically the same thing that's on the 4-point. It's just isolated to a single form. So sometimes they can ask for something like that. And often what I am hearing from the field is that they are requiring a structural engineer to go do this. How many structural engineers do you know that have the time to go spend on somebody's roof for a form like this? What are you going to pay? $500 for a roof inspection, where a home inspector would do that for much less? We'll see. And if that's not enough, in December last year, the Florida legislature passed a bill that's going to require all Citizens customers to come up with flood insurance, okay? Even if you don't live in a high-risk area. So this clip is taken straight from the Citizens website. When Citizens is going to require you to have flood insurance. So we've already seen April and July pass us by. So new customers with homes in SFHA flood zone areas, those are special flood hazard areas, SFHA. Homes in these FSHA flood zones with wind coverage. And what we have coming up are homes insured for more than 600, then more than 5, then more than 4, and then by January of 2027, all Citizens customers will have flood insurance. Wow. If anybody's interested, we can send you this, or you can always Google it yourself. 5 things to know about Citizens roof condition. And it will go into much more detail than we had in this short little period of time here. But I thought you'd like to see this. And so you know where some of these things are coming from, some of the challenges that we're having. And of course, my advice at this point would be make sure your clients clean their gutters. Make sure that they have a clean roof. But tell them not to use bleach in a pressure washer, okay? There are products available from the big box stores. They're not real expensive. That are much more gentler on the roof. And it's a sprinkle on and hose off type of thing anybody can do. Make sure that the tree limbs are trimmed. Anything that looks halfway dead, just cut it out. Make sure that it's as unobscure as possible because they are looking at you. So I appreciate your time. Appreciate a thumbs up, likes, and subscribes. And if you got any other questions, please send them to us and look forward to seeing you again.